Hey everybody, it's Waterman. Before we get to the episode, we just wanted to take a moment to let you know about the Mosaic Learning Architect Academy, hosted by Izzy and Nicole. I'll let Nicole give you all the details, then we'll jump right into the episode.
Hey there, teachers. Take your teaching practice to the next level with the Mosaic Learning Architect Academy. Our 4-day in-person learning experience is designed to help you create engaging, student-centered lessons that are aligned with the latest research and best practices. With Mosaic Instructional Planning, you'll receive support for each day's activities and long-term planning success. Our system is designed to help you create lessons that are not only effective, but also fun and engaging for your students. We believe that learning should be experiential and hands-on. That's why our academy is designed to be interactive, with plenty of opportunities for you to try out new teaching strategies and techniques. But the real magic of the Mosaic Learning Architect Academy is the community you'll join. You'll be part of a network of passionate educators from all over the world, sharing ideas, collaborating on projects, and building relationships that will last long after the academy ends. And when you complete the academy, you'll earn certification as a Mosaic Learning Architect, demonstrating your mastery of the latest teaching strategies and techniques. Join us today. Register at the link in our bio.
Welcome to the only brother-sister podcast built for teachers, by teachers, Dumplings Over Flowers.
I'm the sister, Nicole.
And I'm the brother, Izzy.
And this podcast is here to take you on a backstage tour of our combined 50 years of experience teaching so that we can help you recognize and celebrate substance over appearance.
Or dumplings over
flowers.
Yeah. Well, Waterman, spin the wheel. Hello again from Dallas, Texas. Look, I got my text.
Oh, you do. And hello from New York, from the studio today.
Yeah. So I just got back from University of Texas in Austin a couple days ago, dropped my daughter off there. So I'm wearing the gear, the free shirt. It's got a credit union on the back, but I like the front at least.
I have a feeling that it's the first of many free shirts that you'll be rocking from UT.
Yeah, I hear you. But it reminded me of something, when you're gone west, young man, and here I am, and just kind of acclimating, to different surroundings and settings. It was pretty interesting. And
Awesome.
I want to bring up a thought, during the podcast around my experience there at orientation. But first, we need to know about the topic. Waterman, what do we got?
Hoof claw soup.
Claw soup.
Hoof claw soup. Nothing like a homemade, steaming hot, at least, bowl and plate of hoof claw soup.
You probably should let the audience know about what that could possibly be.
Okay, trigger warning. It's disgusting.
Stop.
No. I mean, I wouldn't really know about the taste because I wasn't really willing to get in there all the way. And maybe I had a couple of sips of it, but I don't remember. But hoof claw soup comes from where would you think that you get hoof claw soup?
I
don't know, in the remotest jungles of wherever? No.
The rainforest, maybe?
In Abuela's house, in wherever? No.
Yeah.
You get it in Queens, in
Truth.
Jamaica, Queens, at a pizza place whose main menu / decoration has a picture on the wall, repurposed, DIY'd, recycled, with beautiful, appetizing pictures of tomatoes in the sun.
Italy.
Pizzas, Italy, a map of Italy, a collage, decoupage, if you will, on top of an old, apparently, portrait of a raven.
It was like a raven or a crow or not even something majestic. It's
a trash bird, a seagull.
Yeah.
Covered in soot.
So we would be we
The
would be
head
in
peeking
Queens.
out. There
Yeah.
had to be something with like you couldn't cover the eye or something, right? Like that would make sense. That was my
Oh
theory.
no. Oh no. All I know is they had the, how do you say baby? What was it? Oh, the Jesus Bambino Jesus was a card also on their counter that they
There
taped
was
to the
so many wonderful things and
pretty
people
Jesus.
in that pizza place and on that corner, but
Good people.
the best revelation that we got there was the healing power of a nice hearty bowl of hoof claw soup. It's
Yeah.
not called that. Nobody go anywhere and ask for that soup. We called it that because it was I don't know, did you ask for it? Did you ask for the soup or like did you say chicken soup? We thought it was chicken soup.
Yeah, like chicken. It was their version of chicken noodle soup. It was mostly minus noodles, and it had a lot of stuff in it. And I would have to, and I just didn't even think twice. That's, I think, what made this so funny.
Yeah,
That
because we both got soup. We weren't feeling well. It was like the winter. It was a slushy, snowy day, trekking through under the subway trestle.
Did you get hit with something this in
Did I?
under
Oh
the
my God,
train?
that was terrible.
Yeah, like a whole ice storm came down on your head.
I forgot about that. That was terrible. Yeah. So
Mhm.
that's the kind of day we were having. A big icicle spike lands in your hair.
Yeah,
And we go to get lunch, and there's only so many slices of pizza you can really have after a while. And let's get cozy and feel better. Let's get a bowl of soup.
yeah,
And it was broth for sure.
yeah.
But that's where certainly Gwyneth Paltrow would stop at the sight of it. But
Huh.
it had a bunch of stuff, vegetables, whatever, like orange things. I'm assuming
Yeah.
carrots, right?
Yeah.
But at the bottom of the bowl, what was making it so delicious were the remains of a massacre.
Yeah, let's just say it was very authentic, right? So
Authentically bones and
yeah,
gristle and joints of some
the hoof.
kind, and what I'm
We can
imagining to be a hoof.
In fact, if you check out the links below in our podcast, I'm just kidding. I have no idea. Waterman just lost his mind.
We'll have the recipe.
However, there may be an image or two of hoof claw soup.
There definitely is.
Well, no, there is. I'm saying we can link them somewhere. But I
Because
started.
the funny part about hoof claw soup is that when my spork hit whatever tendon I hit, I was like, oh God, no. And you were like, what are you not going to finish that? So we had at the end of the day,
You're gonna eat that? You're gonna finish that?
pile of like, I don't even know, hoofs and claws.
Yeah.
A pile of them next to the bowl, and just like no problem, slurping up the goodness, just eating the soup. And I was just horrified, like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
was
know.
back many days, and very interesting. I would watch a lot of Spanish soap operas in that boat, that pizza place.
Telemundo. Yes. Generalissimo.
So what that reminds me,
It was a great place. Really, really good food, but that was a crazy experience.
yeah. But what it really reminds me of, and I'm very thankful, let's say, that my nature is to be comfortable in settings that are obviously a little off and a little out there for what maybe I'm used to, or what how we grew up, or whatever.
Cheers to your vulnerability.
Oh, thank you. But really, if you think about it, when you're talking about being involved in a community, and like we were at that school for a number of years, we spent a number of many, if not, I'd say 80 to 90% of our lunches would be to walk there. It was the closest, most convenient, and most recognizable, regardless of how things were created. And really got into the community, and really got into serving that community, and really seeing them, and getting to know the owners. And you know what? There were language barriers, and it didn't matter. They knew our faces, they knew our hellos, they knew our smiles, they knew our, in fact, after a while, our tastes. I would always get a little side of sauce, and they started putting that, on the side kind of religiously. And, and it really is an important piece of the teaching puzzle. When you are working in a neighborhood or in an environment, it's not enough to try to think about being culturally responsive and attending to social emotional components of the teaching process for our students, but to really kind of feel the neighborhood and get a real sense and taste, if you will.
Oh, I will not.
What?
I
That
will
was
not.
awesome.
Okay, I'll allow it.
Yeah, a little
Watch
taste of the
yourself,
culture.
McCoy.
And to kind of, assimilate to that.
So how do
And
you, my question is something that I've always had to grapple with. In fact, how long did we spend finding lighting that would make me look like a human colored person ish?
Okay.
A long time right before this, right? So I am a pale white girl. I mean, that is what it is. And I've had some situations in my teaching where maybe by first glance, I wouldn't be the person
Yeah.
that you think would be the person who wrote the entire curriculum for the first time ever for African American literature in the high school where I worked.
Dang.
And taught the first,
Baby.
huh?
That's good. I said, pat that back. That's a good one.
Yeah, well, it was a scary one, but it was really needed. And global literature in a school that was at the time, I don't know what it is now, but I'm sure it's similar. But at the time, it was the population was 28% Hispanic,
Mhm.
and I think the percentage of Black students was in the 40s, something like that. And they had no African American history, African American literature, nothing like that. So I actually teamed up with our social studies. One of our social studies teachers and wrote the curriculum for the literature class. And
That's all.
I was only able to do it and pull that off because in our school, and this will get to a question for you. In our school, it was the seniors got to take elective classes for their English classes. So
Okay.
when you teach seniors, there's a moment at the end of the year where you go into the junior classes and try to sell your electives.
Right. Oh, right. That's
So
cool.
kids will want to sign up for your class. So I taught poetry, the canon of poetry, expanding the canon of poetry, and it was like all rock and roll songs and whatever. Great fun times. And it was, but it was pretty obviously like, oh, this is going to be cool. We'll look at music and poetry, whatever.
Yeah.
I go in and I'm like, hey guys, how many of you want to take African American literature with me? And at the time, I had a different last name that was much more generic, I'm going to say. Much more, not that, Galanti would give me any cred among the Black community,
That
but
was mom and dad adopted you?
yeah,
Um,
long
go.
before. I was alone in the orphanage eating Hoof claw soup, and
Yeah.
they came along and saved me.
Making hoof
Yeah,
You
out of my fellow
earn a bowl of that.
orphans.
Yeah.
Anyway, I
Go.
had to really be conscious about the decisions that I made, especially when I taught that class, because the inaugural round of that class was led by one of my favorite people in the world, whose name I will not use, but I will call him Jack.
Wow.
And Jack, I can't call him Jack. I got to call him something closer to his real name. I'm going to say his name was Zion.
Okay. With an
Zion. No. So Zion, yeah, that's better. That's him. He was my student for, I don't know, every year that he was in school, including the extra one. And for a good reason, because it was very clear that there was there were some issues there, learning wise, and
Sure.
especially with language processing and reading and writing, right? So over the years, I mean, this is a pod in itself, the story of Zion, but he
Shit, man.
made me do a rap battle with him. It was a whole thing. But anyway, he brought along the whole class, the whole senior class to African American literature and filled it. And there was waiting lists and there was whatever. And the first day I just like, what do you do when you're, how do you assimilate? This is my question. How do you go beyond being culturally responsive to being culturally maybe like embedded to the extent that you can be without tipping the scales into culturally insensitive?
Right.
Right. So for me, I mean, I know my answer and I know what I did,
Tell me this is my question now.
but it's your question now.
Oh, wow. Well, there are universal languages, right? And there are universal things. So not to mathify this, but I was a math teacher primarily. And so, a lot of times it was the assimilation into culture was just to really ensure that there was application that could be varied in such a way that it made sense culturally, and I didn't overplay it and I didn't underplay it, but I was always sensitive to it, and I didn't try to especially make it seem like I was trying to change names to cult. That to me is just as insensitive as anything.
You mean like when it says like Sally has 3 apples and you change it to like
Yep.
Shaquanda has 3
Yeah.
apples?
To
Yeah.
Jose, or just like, to me that's as insensitive and misrepresenting the diversity inside a culture as any. All right, and which is just as bad. So the way I would do that was to cause the students to personalize those experiences, put your own name into it. And then I would use names in the class that were obvious and common and to them. And so when I'm thinking about it, first of all, just thinking about it is step one. Realizing that it's necessary to create a personal experience that can be, or even that's the questions then, is to say, well, what would this sound like in your, because that's another form of personalizing it. What can you associate this with? One of the most important pieces of teaching algebra or any maths is to kind of interpret the language of numbers into words, and how does the representation of words represent numbers and vice versa. And so, but a lot of times we overlook all of those things because we're thinking about the content and the nouns of the content.
So
Like,
it's a little more dicey in English class where like your opinion is the answer.
Right.
Or, where you're thinking about like, how do you feel about motivation? How do we learn character if not by looking at characters, right? So in English class, it's a little more dicey. So for me, what I did and what I've now taught others to do is to practice those 2 things that I love, empathy and vulnerability,
Yep.
because you really shouldn't and couldn't, and especially not in a way that you're trying to maybe transcend a little bit cultural responsiveness or awareness. You really can't do that without being vulnerable enough to put your own experience out there first.
Right.
And then you can, be open to having the kind of empathy that the person you're trying to be open with will allow for, right? So
Absolutely.
I love that you're talking about even in math, personalizing these things, because that's really what it is. That's what it comes down to. We talk a lot in schools now about identity in many different ways, gender identity, sexual orientation and identity. And, identity is linked to so many of these really volatile social and political issues.
Sure.
So when you're thinking about identity, there's nothing more personal than that. So for me, I was like, hi, everyone. Welcome to African American literature. And I know that you're probably wondering why the whitest white teacher you've ever seen is teaching your class. And they all went, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And of course,
Right.
my little Zion said, hey, shut up. She's good. She's cool. Whatever he said, he would like calling everyone to order.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it was like, yeah, I am doing that because I saw that we needed to know about that. I was wondering why we didn't have that. So I thought, let me make that. And I've been on an interesting journey, y'all,
Yep.
figuring out what content to choose and all that. So what I can bring to you is my own experience.
Well, here's the experience as a great teacher, right? Great teachers either do this or make everyone think they're doing this. And that is that they are experiencing the content with and in front of the kids in real time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't need to have been an African to experience the content, the history, the incredible nuance and all the things that have helped shape other cultures that came out of those cultures. And I can really get excited about it and inspire others to do the same.
Yeah,
And
I think that's true and pretty widely recognized. That's like reader response theory. Louise Rosenblatt, you bring to the table like your own self and make connections that way and share those things and all that. But I always get all researchy on the podcast and then I remember that I used to like know things and they come out when I need them to come out.
That's good.
Reader response theory. But that's pretty widely done. But I think the next level of that is to say, here's something that is controversial. Like, yeah, I'm going to bring to the table my experience of what it was like growing up in my family, with my grandmother and my culture and whatever. But when you're talking about like things like why the history of like drama in African American culture in America as being, muddled by the presence of like blackface in drama, like that's a different thing. That's a different thing. And to be able to say, I'm going to learn about this with and in front of you and all that is great. But you also have to have an awareness of, I know that I'm going to experience this in a very different way, whether you say that or not. And sometimes it's better to not, right? Yep. I think for me. But it's
number one for teachers trying to consider, something like that, approaching a sensitive topic?
Yeah. It's to look at the sensitivity and document. My go-to is always to document something. If I feel nervous about something or scared about it or worried about the outcome, my inclination I found over the years is to document. And sometimes that's...
Give me an example.
When our mother had breast cancer, my way of dealing with that was, okay, we're going to write down this whole journey. I shaved her head in front of the computer camera so that she could watch and we could be strong and we can get your head shaved and whatever. And I took a zillion pictures of her and I'm like, look, now you're a shaved head model. And, let's really, Mom, how are you feeling right now? I would like interview her. And can I tell you something? My computer erased every single one of those videos.
You got canceled by your computer.
Listen to this. Except my computer, I don't have any of that footage except for the video that I took when she was ringing the bell, like in victory in her last chemotherapy treatment.
I like that.
How great is that? But anyway, that's an example. My immediate reaction was like, oh my God, I'm so scared. Let me get every minute of this down. And I mean, obviously I'm a very reading and writing based person. Yeah. I mean, that's just my inclination anyway, but it's, when you're thinking about that as applicable to teaching, especially for me and especially in English, and like, don't roll your eyes at me the way that I did at you when you mathify something.
Yeah.
But, for teachers, it's like, you have to have that moment. I was actively going through some terrible times while I was teaching. And when I was writing with my students,
Uh-huh.
which is just something that I always did naturally long before we ever, crystallized that into a methodology.
Right.
I would write really terrible poetry about like what I was going through, and I would share it with them because they have to know that that's how you do that. I'm not doing anything but guiding these students into understanding how to engage with reading and writing.
Yeah. So we got back to, in our last 2 minutes here, we got back to the idea of with and in front of, right? So authentic experiences are from the practitioner level.
Mhm.
And who's never taught any middle school math classes that I've ever known? A real mathematician. And so we are all just kind of figuring out how to be assimilate to this thing called mathematics. And even as a teacher of math, I was a teacher of skills. I was a teacher of problem solving. I was a teacher of
Yeah.
ways in which we can use different experiences from around the globe for forever. How did Pythagoras come up with the theorem? How did this even evolve into something useful? And kind of put ourselves into those positions. And so I see, in terms of assimilating the culture, this incredible parallels there. Like, I don't need to have been, and this could be controversial, ladies and gentlemen, I don't need to have been or be let's say, a part of a culture from birth to help move and advance cultural thinking inside of that culture. And so, in other words, you painted yourself in this picture of a white woman in this African American study world, and how important it was to just kind of be like, hey, I'm in the middle of this, and I don't want to bend it in a certain way, but I'm going to present this stuff and the material. And you had some support from your supporting cast there, which is great, because obviously,
Yeah, my 7-foot black friend was a really great supporting
no,
cast.
helpful,
Thanks,
helpful.
Mr. Johnson.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm going with that. And the idea that we can feel very confident in stepping into the shoes of someone who facilitates learning and understanding of skills and of ideas that form new thoughts and form culture.
You know what I think
Not
too?
the middle of it.
I think even just the approach,
Hmm.
that's where we started with the soup, right? Like you were like, "Oh, hey, cool. Whatever this is, I'm going to eat it." Right?
That's it.
To be able to approach is a skill that we
Yeah.
want teachers to learn. My message in that is like you can learn how to be vulnerable like that. That will
Correct.
teach you empathy. That will, you have to start, you have to approach, you have to pick
Yeah.
out the elbows and put them on the side of your bowl and keep eating your soup.
There you
But I
go.
think for the kids too, it's the idea of engaging with something like that that is
Yes.
sometimes scary, and teachers think that they have no control over that, and they don't.
Right.
Like, "Oh, I can't do that because I don't know what they're gonna say, and then what if they say this, and what if they say that?" And I
Right.
think maybe the answer to that is kinda like, well, you know what you're gonna say, or maybe you don't, but it's the
Yeah, and
approach,
that's what makes
and it's
teaching
okay.
scary. So let me bring this full circle in the last minute. I
Why
said
do you keep
earlier,
saying imaginary times? Okay.
like, so in our, before we cut to commercial, let me just say that that I started with saying another imaginary thing, which was I'm wearing this Texas shirt and I have a story about it. But now I
Oh,
do.
hey.
Yeah, and now I do. We all the parents met in the gym where the women's volleyball team won the national championship, I might add, which is pretty amazingly cool, especially for me and being a volleyball dad. But that's the side note of the story.
Glad you clarified that. For
Yeah,
me,
and then
being a setter all my life in women's
yeah.
volleyball.
So they had all of the disciplines line up after this initial kickoff meeting. My daughter is majoring in film, so we were in the communications department. So, all right, if you're in communications, go find their sign. The people are holding signs up and stuff. And I carefully and on purpose waited in the back to see where the interest was, where all the, now University of Texas, big tech school, there was a ton of engineering. The shortest line, the teacher, education, shortest lines. And it was obviously, like being who we are, like it was noticeable. But B, I think it comes back to the shaky ground that it is teacher.
Absolutely.
Right? And it's so undefined in its ideas at this point. And so one of them, I think there is a discovery. If you are a teacher listening, this is a really important discovery that I don't even think I can connect with in like one or two thoughts here. But this type of podcast and the thinking that went on here, I think is really important, because if we don't consider and really put ourselves in a place, in a different standing, in a different place, then our opinion's going to come out. It's shaky ground. Our fears are going to come out. That's shaky ground. Our apprehension to move content forward in ways that are important to kids is going to come out, and that's shaky ground. So how do we stabilize the position? There were some great tips and thoughts inside of this podcast that my wonderfully well-lit sister just brought to light. So really cool stuff. All that and a bowl of soup, huh?
Mm-hmm.
No?
Yep.
Okay. I thought it was good.
No, it's all that in a bowl of soup.
There you go. Listen, we've got some t-shirts. And so look for a link in our bio on our...
Stop putting out links.
If you go to our podcast on Instagram and you look for the links...
Oh, dear God.
You get a chance to purchase the Hoof Claw soup shirt.
Or the recipe, or the apron. I'll make that into an apron.
Yes, all the above. The recipe card. So we have a package, a special package right now running for 4th of July.
It's like a hoof and a claw, like the pot holders. I think you know where the oven mitts, a hoof and a claw.
Oh, yeah.
Hello.
Love that. You also can find the Griffin plush.
Oh my gosh.
Imagine a little 3D Griffin plush. Poor Griff lost a leg. I don't know if the audience knew that.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. But yeah, sure did. All right. Until next time.
Until next time.
Hey everybody, this is the unseen but ever-present Waterman. Thank you for listening to Dumplings Over Flowers. Our current plan is to have new episodes every other week, so be sure to subscribe to the show on YouTube or follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can find us on YouTube or on social by searching Dumplings Over Flowers or @DumplingsPod. That's @DumplingsPod. Also, don't be afraid to leave a comment on our YouTube channel. Your comments, questions, or stories may very well inspire the conversation in our next episode. If you would like to know more about our cloud-based lesson planning platform, you can visit mosaicip.com. And if you're interested in signing up for the Mosaic Learning Architect Academy, you can get more information and register online at mosaicip.com/MLA. That's mosaicip.com/MLA. Once again, thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.